And welcome to the Deep Sleep Channel. Tonight we're exploring something that might seem dark, but is actually deeply inspiring. We're going to talk about the worst plagues and viruses in human history. The Black Death, the Spanish flu, smallpox, tuberculosis, yellow fever. But this is not a story about death and despair. This is a story about resilience. This is a story about how humanity faced catastrophe and survived. This is a story about how we learned, adapted, and eventually conquered diseases that once seemed unbeatable. Every plague we'll discuss was devastating. Millions died, civilizations were shaken, but humans persisted. We found treatments, we developed vaccines, we learned from the past, we built better systems. We survived. This is a story about human ingenuity, about how adversity drives innovation, about how facing death made us stronger and wiser, about how out of tragedy we created medicines and knowledge that saved billions of lives. Close your eyes, let yourself travel through history, let yourself witness the courage of people facing unknown diseases, let yourself see how humanity learned, adapted, and ultimately prevailed. Part 1. The Black Death, the medieval apocalypse, the world before 1347. In 1347, Europe was a thriving civilization. Cities were growing, trade was expanding, kingdoms were building. Life was difficult by modern standards, but people had adapted to it. They had built societies, cultures, traditions. Then something arrived that shattered everything. It came on merchant ships from Central Asia. It came in the form of a bacterium carried by fleas living on rats. The Black Death, or bubonic plague, was about to kill somewhere between 75 million and 200 million people. It was about to devastate civilizations. It was about to reshape the world. The horror. The plague arrives. The plague spreads quickly through Europe. Within a few years, it's everywhere. Towns, cities, villages. No place is safe. People die rapidly, horribly. The disease causes black swelling on the skin, buboes. It causes hemorrhaging. It causes fever and pain. Most people who contract it die within days. And it spreads fast. A person walks through a town. A flea bites them. They develop symptoms. They infect others. Within weeks, the entire town is dying. Families are destroyed. Children die, parents die, entire communities die. Towns are found empty, everyone dead, no one alive to bury the bodies. The death toll is unimaginable. In some cities, 75% of the population dies. In some regions, 80 to 90% are dead. Entire generations are wiped out. The response, helplessness and adaptation. At first, people don't understand what's happening. They don't know what causes it. They think it's bad air, they think it's God's punishment, they think it's witchcraft. They try remedies that don't work. They try prayer, they try fleeing to the countryside, they try isolation. Some of these responses help, but not because people understand why, just by luck. But gradually people notice patterns. They notice that isolation helps. They notice that people who stay away from the sick don't get sick as often. They notice that some places are hit harder than others. Even without understanding the cause, people begin to develop strategies. Quarantine, keeping the sick isolated, becomes common. Trade is restricted. Cities are closed to outsiders. It's not a perfect response, but it shows human adaptability. Even in the face of an incomprehensible catastrophe, people figure out what helps. The recover, rebuilding from nothing. The plague doesn't disappear quickly. It returns in waves for centuries, but eventually the worst is over. Populations stop dying, and then something remarkable happens. Survivors rebuild. They rebuild their lives, they rebuild their towns, they rebuild their societies. And in rebuilding, the world changes. Labour is scarce, so workers have more power and earn better wages. Entire estates are abandoned, so peasants can claim land. Feudal systems begin to break down. This sets the stage for the Renaissance and a gradual shift toward more modern economic systems. The plague killed millions, but from the ashes, new possibilities emerged. The plague was catastrophic, but it also created conditions for profound social change. The lesson: Understanding comes later. For centuries after the Black Death, people didn't understand what caused it. It wasn't until the late 1800s that scientists figured out the connection between fleas, rats, and plague bacteria. But even without understanding the cause, people had developed effective responses, quarantine and isolation, that worked. This shows something important about human problem solving. We can respond effectively to problems even when we don't fully understand them. Part 2. Smallpox, the eradicable disease. The ancient killer smallpox has killed more people than any other disease in human history. Estimates suggest it's killed somewhere between 300 million and 500 million people across all of recorded history. The disease is ancient. It emerged thousands of years ago. Mummies from ancient Egypt show signs of smallpox. It devastated civilizations for millennia. Smallpox is terrifying. It causes fever, body aches, and then a characteristic rash of painful pustules covering the entire body. Many people die. Those who survive are often left with permanent scars and blindness. Variolation, the first vaccine. In the 1700s, a practice emerged in Asia and Africa called variolation. People would deliberately expose themselves to mild cases of smallpox, using pus from infected people to build immunity. It was dangerous. About 1 to 2% of people died from variolation, but that was much lower than the 20 to 30% death rate of naturally acquired smallpox. So people chose the risk. This practice spread to Europe through various means. In England, Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, who had survived smallpox, promoted variolation. She had her children variolated. It was controversial. Many people thought deliberately infecting yourself was insane, but it worked. Variolation saved thousands of lives. The vaccine, Edward Jenner's discovery. In 1796, an English physician named Edward Jenner made a crucial observation. Milkmaids who contracted cowpox, a mild disease, seemed to be immune to smallpox. He tested his hypothesis by deliberately infecting a boy with cowpox, then later exposing him to smallpox. The boy didn't get sick. Jenner had created the first vaccine. The word vaccine comes from vacca, Latin for cow, because the vaccine came from cowpox. Jenner's vaccine was safer than variolation. It was more effective. It could be preserved and transported. It could be given to everyone. But it took time for people to accept it. Vaccination was controversial. Some people thought it was wrong to deliberately infect people. Some people were suspicious of the idea. But gradually, vaccination spread. More and more people were vaccinated, and the death toll from smallpox began to decline. The eradication, humanity's greatest victory. Over the next 200 years, vaccination campaigns spread globally. International health organizations coordinated efforts to vaccinate populations across the world. And it worked. Smallpox cases declined, the disease became rarer. Eventually it became extremely rare. 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox officially eradicated. The disease was completely eliminated and did the work to make it happen. Part 3. The 1918 Spanish flu, the silent killer, the forgotten pandemic. In 1918, while World War I was raging, something else was killing millions. The Spanish flu, an influenza virus, infected about 500 million people and killed between 50 million and 100 million. But many people have never heard of it. It happened over 100 years ago. The world has mostly forgotten, yet it was one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. The mystery. What made it so deadly? The Spanish flu was different from typical flu. It killed young, healthy people, not just the elderly and weak. It caused severe pneumonia. Many people who got sick died within days. The pandemic spread in waves. The first wave in spring 1918 was deadly. People hoped summer would stop it. It did for a while, but in fall 1918 a second wave hit. It was even more deadly than the first. The virus had evolved. It had become more virulent. A third wave hit in winter 1918-1919, and then, as mysteriously as it had appeared, the pandemic ended. The virus became milder. Most people who contracted it recovered. Scientists to this day are not entirely sure why the Spanish flu killed so many people. They've studied the virus's genetics. They've looked for clues, but the full story remains somewhat mysterious. The resect. adapting without understanding. People didn't understand what caused the flu. They thought it was spread by bad air. They thought it was carried by specific winds. But they adapted anyway. Cities implemented quarantines. Schools and theatres closed. Public gatherings were banned. People wore masks. Again, without understanding the cause, people developed responses that helped. Isolation, quarantine, masks, the same interventions that would be recommended a century later during COVID-19. The recover. Adaptation and acceptance. The Spanish flu killed millions. Entire families were wiped out. But the pandemic ended. The virus mutated into a milder form. People developed immunity and the world moved on. Life returned to normal. People rebuilt. Societies healed. What's remarkable is that the Spanish flu, which killed as many people as the Black Death, is largely forgotten. We don't talk about it. We don't remember it. We moved on. This speaks to human resilience. We can survive catastrophes and recover. We can rebuild after tremendous loss. The lesson. Preparedness. The Spanish flu teaches us an important lesson. Pandemics happen. Viruses mutate. New diseases emerge. We cannot prevent all pandemics, but we can prepare for them. After COVID-19, the world has a better understanding of pandemic preparedness. We know what works. Testing, isolation, vaccination, clear communication. These lessons were learned through the Spanish flu and other pandemic. Part 4. Tuberculosis, the Long War, the White Plague. Tuberculosis killed more people in the 19th century than any other disease. It was called the White Plague because of the pale, wasting appearance of those who died from it. TB is a slow disease. Unlike plague or flu, TB takes months or years. People develop a chronic cough. They waste away. They slowly die. In the 1800s, TB was everywhere. It was the leading cause of death. It killed millions. It created a whole culture around the disease. Artists, writers and musicians were romanticized as TB victims. The disease had a strange, tragic appeal. The prevention, sanitation and fresh air. In the late 1800s, before antibiotics were invented, people developed strategies to prevent TB. They noticed that TB was more common in crowded, dirty environments. They began to advocate for fresh air, sunlight and better sanitation. Sanitariums were built, special facilities where TB patients could rest in fresh air and sunlight. It sounds simple, but it worked. TB rates began to decline, not from treatment, but from prevention, better living conditions, fresh air, and isolation of infected people. The cure, the antibiotic revolution. In 1921, Albert Calmette and Camille Guérin developed the first TB vaccine. It helped, but it wasn't a complete solution. Then, in 1943, a streptomycin, the first antibiotic effective against TB, was discovered. For the first time, TB could be cured, not just prevented, but actually cured. The impact was immediate and profound. TB mortality rates plummeted. The disease that had killed millions began to disappear from wealthy countries. The ongoing battle. But TB didn't disappear completely. In poor countries with inadequate healthcare, TB remains a serious problem. Antibiotic-resistant strains have emerged. Yet even with these challenges, TB is no longer the unbeatable killer it once was. We have tools, we have treatments, we have the knowledge to control it. TB shows us a long-term story of human progress against disease. It took centuries, it took multiple breakthroughs, but we ultimately prevailed. Part 5. Polio, Fear and Victory. The Summer Terror. In the early 1900s, polio epidemics were a source of summer terror. Each summer, cases would spike. Children would become paralyzed. Some would die. Others would be permanently disabled. Polio is a virus that attacks the nervous system. It can cause paralysis, usually in the legs. People who were paralyzed in the chest couldn't breathe without an iron lung, a machine that had to breathe for them. Polio created a culture of fear. Parents didn't let their children go outside. Public swimming pools were closed. Playgrounds were empty. Franklin D. Roosevelt, who became President of the United States, was paralyzed by polio as an adult. He used a wheelchair for the rest of his life. The March of Dimes. Collective action. In 1938, President Roosevelt launched the March of Dimes, a fundraising campaign to fight polio. The public responded with enthusiasm. Millions of people donated money. Schools organized fundraising events. The money funded research into polio prevention and treatment. Scientists across the country worked on developing a vaccine. The vaccine. Jonas Salk and Albert Sabin. In 1952, Jonas Salk developed the first polio vaccine, an inactivated dead virus vaccine given by injection. It was effective. Then, in 1961, Albert Sabin developed an oral polio vaccine, a live but weakened virus vaccine that could be given orally. It was even easier to distribute. Both vaccines were widely administered. Vaccination programs began across the developed world. Polio cases began to decline dramatically. The near eradication, like smallpox, polio has been nearly eradicated. In the 1970s, hundreds of thousands of cases were reported globally each year. By the 2000s, only a few dozen cases remained. In most developed countries, polio is completely gone. Children are vaccinated as a matter of routine. Parents don't fear it anymore. In a few countries in Africa and Asia, polio still exists, but it's rare. With continued vaccination efforts, complete eradication is within reach. Polio shows us how quickly diseases can be controlled when we have the tools and the commitment. Part 6. Yellow fever. Human ingenuity. The deadly mystery. Yellow fever killed thousands. It was a mysterious disease. People would develop fever, jaundice turning yellow, and many would die. For centuries, no one understood what caused it. They didn't know how it spread. They couldn't treat it. The breakthrough, mosquitoes. In the late 1800s, a physician named Walter Reed investigated yellow fever. He had a theory. Maybe the disease wasn't spread through contact or contaminated water, but through mosquito bites. He tested his theory. He allowed infected mosquitoes to bite volunteers. The volunteers developed yellow fever. He had proven that mosquitoes transmitted the disease. This was revolutionary. Once people understood the transmission method, they could prevent it. They could eliminate mosquitoes. They could screen windows. They could protect against bites. The impact. Controlling the disease. Understanding transmission allowed people to control yellow fever. In Panama, yellow fever had been a major obstacle to building the Panama Canal. Thousands of workers were dying. Once the transmission method was understood, measures were taken to eliminate mosquitoes. Marshes were drained. Water containers were covered. Workers were screened and protected. The yellow fever epidemic ended. The canal was built. The disease was controlled. The vaccine. Later, a yellow fever vaccine was developed. It provides immunity. Today, yellow fever can be prevented through vaccination. Yellow fever shows how understanding transmission is key to controlling disease. Once we understand how a disease spreads, we can stop it. Part 7. The modern era. COVID-19. The pandemic. In 2019-2020, a new coronavirus emerged in China and spread globally. COVID-19 killed millions. It shut down economies. It changed the world. But humanity faced it with tools previous generations didn't have. The science. mRNA vaccines. Within a year, multiple vaccines were developed using cutting-edge mRNA technology. This was remarkable. It had taken decades to develop previous vaccines. Now, multiple vaccines were available within months. The vaccines were effective. They prevented severe illness and death. Billions of people were vaccinated. The response, coordination. Governments coordinated. Public health agencies worked together. Scientists shared information. Tests were developed. Treatments were created. It wasn't perfect, but the response showed how far we've come. We didn't have to helplessly watch people die like in the Black Death or Spanish flu. We had tools. We had knowledge. We had the ability to respond. Part 8. What we've learned. The pattern. Understanding leads to control. Across all these diseases, a pattern emerges. First, disease appears. We don't understand it. We're helpless. Many die. Then we observe patterns. We develop responses based on observation. Quarantine, isolation, sanitation, even without understanding the cause. Then we understand the cause. This understanding leads to better responses. Then we develop treatments or vaccines. The disease becomes controllable. Finally, with enough resources and commitment, we can eliminate or nearly eliminate the disease. The pattern. Human resilience. Every plague in history has devastated populations. Every disease has killed millions. But every time, humans have survived. We've rebuilt. We've recovered. This resilience is remarkable. It's not that we're immune to suffering. We suffer greatly, but we don't give up. We adapt. We figure things out. We survive. Part 8. Cooperation works. The diseases that have been most successfully controlled are the ones we've tackled globally. Smallpox required global cooperation to eradicate. Polio required coordinated vaccination campaigns. COVID-19 required global science. When we work together, we can accomplish extraordinary things. We can eliminate diseases. We can save billions of lives. The lesson. The future. In the future, new diseases will emerge. Viruses will mutate. Pandemics will happen. We cannot prevent this, but we can be ready. We have tools now that previous generations didn't have. We have genetic sequencing. We have rapid vaccine development. We have global communication. We have the knowledge of history. We can face the future with more confidence than previous generations faced their plagues. Part 9. Meditation, resilience and hope. Contemplating survival. The plagues and diseases we've discussed were catastrophic. Millions died. Societies were shaken. But humans survived. We persisted. We adapted. We recovered. This teaches us something important about resilience. We are more resilient than we think. We can face catastrophe and survive. We can lose everything and rebuild. The triumph of knowledge. What's most remarkable about the history of plagues is how knowledge has accumulated. Each disease has taught us something. Each epidemic has made us better prepared for the next one. We don't have perfect knowledge. We can't prevent all suffering, but we know more than we did, and that knowledge has saved billions of lives. Our responsibility. We are the beneficiaries of centuries of sacrifice and learning, the people who suffered through the Black Death, the scientists who developed the first vaccines, the doctors and nurses who treated the sick. We've inherited a world where many of the diseases that once seemed unstoppable have been conquered. We should be grateful for that, and we should be committed to continuing the work, to fighting new diseases, to helping those who are still suffering, to building a healthier future. Hope in darkness. The history of plagues might seem like a story of death and darkness, but it's actually a story of hope. It's a story about how humans face the worst and find a way through. Every plague has ended. Every epidemic has been overcome. Not quickly, not without suffering, but ultimately we've prevailed. Sleep knowing that history shows us we can face catastrophe and survive. Sleep knowing that knowledge and cooperation can overcome seemingly impossible challenges. Sleep knowing that the human spirit is resilient beyond measure. Thank you for journeying through the history of plagues with us. Thank you for contemplating how humanity has faced the worst and survived. As you sleep tonight, you carry with you the stories of millions who faced disease and death. You carry their resilience, you carry their determination, you carry their hope. You also carry the knowledge that we've learned from the past, that we've developed tools to fight disease, that we can face future challenges with confidence. Sleep knowing that despite all the suffering, despite all the death, humanity has shown extraordinary capacity to adapt, to learn, and to overcome. The plagues were terrible, but they also show us the best of humanity, our ingenuity, our compassion, our refusal to give up. Sleep well, knowing that we are part of a human story of triumph over adversity. Good night from the Deep Sleep Channel. Sleep well.